If life feels too exhausting, listen to these 18 stories to enlighten your mind. No one's life is always smooth sailing. There will always be obstacles ahead blocking the path. That's why you must learn how to escape difficult situations as quickly as possible. On this journey called life, which is full of hardships, sometimes it helps to pause and reflect on meaningful stories. You'll realize there are things that need changing, actions that need taking, and that will benefit your future. Story 1. Where does a person's true value lie? There was a beggar who had lost his right arm, looking very pitiful. Anyone who saw him would give him money. One day, he came to a farmer's house asking for food. The woman of the house told him to first move a pile of bricks from the gate to the yard. The beggar became angry and said, "You know very well I only have one arm. Are you mocking the disabled?" Unexpectedly, the woman sat down and began moving the bricks herself using only one hand. After finishing, she turned to the beggar and said, "If I can do it with one hand, why can't you?" The beggar had no words. He struggled but eventually spent 2 hours moving the bricks, sweating profusely. The woman handed him a white towel. After wiping his face and neck, the towel turned black. Then she gave him 50,000 VND. The beggar thanked her repeatedly. She replied, "There's no need to thank me. You earned this with your sweat." The beggar asked if he could keep the towel as a keepsake. Years later, the same beggar returned wearing a suit. He found the now elderly woman and said emotionally, "I used to be a beggar, and now I'm the chairman of a company. You helped me regain my lost dignity and start over. If it weren't for you, I'd probably still be wandering the streets." The woman said, "It was you who changed your life." He wanted to give her a house in gratitude, but she gently declined. He couldn't understand why. She smiled and said, "Because everyone in my family also has only one hand. If we want to maintain our human dignity, we must respect ourselves, respect those we know, and even those we don't. When we find joy in our work, life becomes meaningful. Doing what we love might not bring great wealth, but it's far more valuable than having money while losing your soul. Don't see your own misfortune as something too great. There are many others who suffer more. When we consider our troubles small, it becomes easier to overcome them. Live joyfully, positively, and create your own life. The most precious things we possess are our heart and mind. When we awaken the seeds of kindness within, they will fuel the creativity of our minds, and miracles will happen. A physical handicap, like losing a hand, is a small obstacle. One change in mindset turned a beggar into a company president. Speaking of physical disabilities, few are as unfortunate as Nick Vujicic, born without arms or legs. Yet, he didn't succumb to despair or self-pity. He built a successful career and a happy family, becoming an inspiration for millions of disabled and able-bodied people worldwide. Character defines the value of a person. Those with disabilities who develop strong will and noble character can rise to become respected and admired individuals. Story 2. Reverse thinking leads to breakthroughs. The difference between a successful person and an average one lies in thinking. Successful people view problems from multiple angles. In adversity, they use reverse thinking. A rich man was always afraid someone would break into his house. He wanted to buy a guard dog but worried about the cost of feeding it. After much thought, he turned off his Wi-Fi before leaving, setting it to open access. Since then, dozens of people gathered daily in front of his house to use free Wi-Fi, and no one dared to rob it. Problem solved. A rich man went to buy tomatoes. The seller said they were 16,000 VND per kilo. He picked 2 tomatoes and then added 1 large one. The seller looked at the scale and said, 10,000. He removed the large one, and the seller said, 8,000. The large tomato was heavier than the two combined, yet the seller was acting irrationally. Everyone around was annoyed, but the rich man stayed calm, gave the seller 2,000 VND, and took only the large tomato, and left with a smile. A new fishing pond opened. Entry cost, 200,000 VND. Most people couldn't catch any fish all day. The owner said, "If you don't catch fish, you'll get a chicken instead." People flocked to fish. Everyone left with a chicken, happy. Later, the staff revealed the owner was actually a chicken farmer. American investor Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime partner, was once asked how to find a good partner. He said, "First, you have to be a good and trustworthy person yourself, because a good partner isn't a fool." Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years and abused by guards. After becoming president, he invited 3 of those guards to his inauguration and showed them respect. He said, "When I walked out of that prison door toward freedom, if I still held on to anger, I would still be in prison." Reverse thinking. Forgiving others is actually improving yourself. An old man loved peace and quiet, but kids constantly played near his house. He came up with a plan. He told the children, "Thank you for bringing joy to my quiet place," and gave them each 3 candies. They came every day. Later, he reduced it to 2 candies, then 1, then none. The kids became annoyed and said they wouldn't come anymore. The man got his peace back. Reverse thinking, understand others' motivations, and success will follow. A salesman said to a woman customer, "We have a book called 500 Reasons Why Men Come Home Late. You should definitely buy it." She asked, "Why?" He replied, "Because your husband already bought a copy." Reverse thinking, play into others' psychology, and the power is yours. A buffet restaurant struggled with wasteful customers. They introduced a 10,000 VND fine for wasting food. Business worsened. Then they raised the food prices by 10,000 and rewarded non-wasteful eaters with a 10,000 VND rebate. Business boomed. Reverse thinking, never make customers feel like they're losing, make them feel rewarded. A senior monk asked a young monk, "If stepping forward means death, and stepping back also means death, what would you do?" The young monk quickly replied, "I'll walk sideways." Reverse thinking, when no options seem right, there's always another path. Life is unpredictable. Adversity and failure are normal. You must keep a positive attitude, change your perspective, and flip the problem around. Where it seems like there's no road, you might find a blooming path. Sometimes, losing something is another way of gaining something. May you remain optimistic even in hardship, and may reverse thinking lead you to success. Story 3, Anger is instinct, controlling anger is strength. You've probably experienced situations like this. You're unfairly accused at work. Almost hit by a tricycle going the wrong way on the road. You return home and a child keeps asking the same question, unable to understand even after you explain repeatedly. In such situations, the human instinct is to get angry. But if we always act on impulse, argue with others, and lose our temper, not only do we fail to solve the problem, we might even create more trouble. There was a situation like this. One night, a man was driving to the airport to pick up his brother. On the way back, at a red light, when it turned green, the 3-wheeled vehicle in front didn't move. The car behind started honking loudly. The driver rolled down his window and leaned out to see what was going on. The driver behind yelled at him. "What are you looking at? Hurry up." He got angry right away. "It's not that I don't want to go. The road's blocked. Can't you see?" Just then, his brother signaled to him not to yell back. He rolled down the window, turned around, and calmly said to the driver behind, "Sorry, there's a tricycle blocking the road ahead. I'll go check it out." Then he got out and went up to investigate. It turned out the tricycle driver was distracted, talking on the phone, and hadn't noticed the light had turned green. After passing the intersection, the younger brother said, "You're so kind. That guy couldn't even see the tricycle, yet blamed us." The older brother replied, "What's the point in arguing? Arguing won't solve anything. Being able to control yourself, that's real strength and wisdom. In truth, no one is born with this kind of emotional mastery. It comes from personal growth and life experience." When he was younger, the older brother also had a short temper. Often argued when disagreements arose. But over the years, working away from home, he climbed from a regular employee to a senior manager. His capabilities grew stronger, but his temper became more modest. Truly, anger is one of the lowest instincts of human nature. If someone loses their composure and gentleness, they're already one step behind others. Story 4. If you want to keep your good fortune, you must first control your temper. In life, you'll encounter unpleasant people, unfair treatment, situations you don't like, and even failure. But these are all normal parts of life. So don't get angry, don't complain, and don't compare yourself with others. Because those thoughts only lead to suffering. If you can't even control your emotions, then even if the whole world is handed to you, you might ruin it all in a single moment. A young man working as a food delivery rider, in a rush, missed the elevator. Frustrated, he kicked the elevator repeatedly out of anger. As a result, the police were called for damaging public property. When questioned, the young man said things at home weren't going well. He was already in a bad mood, and missing the elevator just pushed him over the edge. After explaining and apologizing, the hotel staff accepted his apology. But he still had to pay compensation. That one reckless kick cost him half a month's salary, and he was nearly detained. Clearly, the loss was far greater than any gain. Someone once said, "If everything in your life is going wrong, it might just be because of your temper. If you're quick to anger, you'll harm others, and yourself even more." That's why we must learn to manage our temper. Don't panic when things go wrong. Be more patient. All of this is to maintain peace, and preserve your blessings. As an adult, you can achieve many things. But only if you can manage your emotions. Whether it's in love or life. It's been proven time and time again. Those who can control their emotions are the ones who achieve greater happiness and success than others. Story 5. Learn to stay calm, and learn to open your heart. Very few people are born calm and never angry. On the contrary, the more capable a person is, the less likely they are to lose their temper. Not because they don't get angry, but because they have strong self-control. In life, you'll inevitably meet people who don't understand you. If you're outstanding, someone will be jealous, pointing out your flaws or even causing trouble for no reason. If you're not, people might look down on you. That's just the dark side of human nature. If you get angry every time something upsets you, then you'll be constantly angry, endlessly. Han Shan once asked Zen Master Shurda, "If people slander me, deceive me, insult me, laugh at me, despise me, hate me, and cheat me, how should I respond?" Shurda replied, "Just endure it. Let it go. Respect them. Ignore them. Wait a few years, then see what happens. If you don't get angry, you've already won." In life, if you want to live well, what you strive for isn't just the end result, but your state of mind. The kind of temperament you have will determine the kind of life you live. With the right mindset, you can face all of life's trivialities with calm. A person with a good attitude knows how to season life and make ordinary days feel lively and meaningful. Life is 10 parts, and 9 of them won't go your way. When things don't go as expected, just tell yourself, it's okay. This too shall pass. Live joyfully every day, so your life won't be lived in vain. The road ahead is not long, so may you cultivate a good temperament and be blessed with endless good fortune. Story 6. Don't lower yourself because of negative thoughts. Henry Frederick Miel once said, "The value of a person lies not in what he owns or even what he does, but in his essence." The $100 bill story. A speaker walked into a room, silently pulled a $100 bill from his wallet, and asked the audience, "I have a gift for you. Who wants this $100 bill?" Everyone eagerly raised their hands, wanting the money. He asked again, "Who really wants this $100 bill?" Most people still kept their hands raised. "All right," he said, "let me do something to this bill before choosing someone." He crumpled the bill, threw it on the floor, stomped on it, and picked it up. Then he asked again, "Who still wants this $100 bill?" Many still raised their hands. He said, "Even though I crumpled and stepped on it, its value hasn't changed. It's still worth $100. So, no matter what others say or what failures you encounter, you are still you. Don't let bad thoughts drag you down. The real problem is not that you've lost your value, but that you haven't learned how to cherish it." Miley Cyrus, living for herself. This story reminds me of singer Miley Cyrus. At 24, she had already made countless headlines for her personal changes. She became widely known through the movie Hannah Montana, the movie, playing the main role at age 17. Back then, she was hailed as a promising superstar with a sweet smile and great voice. As time passed, the Disney princess grew up. For a while, all people saw were Miley's scandals. Many parents banned their kids from watching her shows, calling her a bad influence. Controversial outfits and behavior led some to say her transformation was due to her breakup with her fiancé. But Miley didn't lose herself. She broke free from expectations yet continued to contribute positively. She donated part of her income to the Happy Hippie Foundation, helping the homeless, the LGBTQ+ community, and the marginalized. Though media only showed her scandals, Miley ignored the criticism. She performed boldly, dressed boldly, but her true value lay in her compassionate soul. When she reunited with ex-fiancé Liam Hemsworth, people saw a softer Miley in the music video Malibu. For 7 years, Liam remained in her heart. Some said she wasn't a model celebrity, but she lived her truth, followed her emotions, and fought for justice. So no matter what happens, be honest with your feelings. Don't worry about what others think. You only get one life. No one is perfect. You can't please everyone. So live for yourself. Story 7. The 3 Apple Sellers. In a small town, 3 young men set out to seek business opportunities. They came across a region with large, sweet red apples. The first man spent all his money buying the best apples, shipped them home, and sold them at high prices. He quickly became rich. The second man used half his money to buy 100 of the best apple saplings, rented hillside land, and planted them at home. The third man walked for days, observing the apple orchards and ecosystems. He brought home some soil samples and spent 3 years preparing a hillside, nurturing the soil, improving it, and finally planting the saplings. Years later, The first man still bought and sold apples, but profits dropped due to competition and shipping costs. The second man had his own orchard, but the apples were inferior. Still, he earned steady income. The third man grew the best quality apples, attracting customers and selling at premium prices. Moral: people who contribute the least to the final product earn the least. Managers and directors earn more because they plan years ahead. Entrepreneurs with decades of vision earn the most. Success depends on foresight. Same opportunity, different methods, different outcomes. The first one earned fast, but the visionary succeeded long term. Story 8. Don't die at 25 and be buried at 75. There's a saying, haste makes waste, but also, speed wins the battle. So, should we go fast or slow? In life, success often comes to those who move first. But some people miss out on opportunities, not because they're incapable, but because they're too slow. In 1970s California, a poor young man named Frank dropped out of school and moved to Chicago. He had no money, no connections, no assets. So, he worked shining shoes. 6 months later, with his savings, he opened an ice cream shop. He kept his old shoe-shining booth out front. The ice cream business boomed. He opened several branches. At its peak, he owned over 4,000 stores and captured 70% of the U.S. market. At the same time, a rich young man named Steve in Chicago also saw the potential in the ice cream business. But when he mentioned it to his father, he was scolded for being short-sighted. A year later, his father admitted he was wrong, but by then it was too late. Lesson: speed equals wealth. People say success requires planning and research. But the truth is, experience comes from doing. If you hesitate, you'll regret it. Now or never. Even relationships can't wait for someone who's passive. So how can money wait? In the Eastern Han Dynasty, a woman named Meng, plain-looking but strong, chose her husband not by her parents' choice but her own. She wanted to marry Liang Hong for his virtue. Liang Hong agreed immediately. This story birthed the Chinese idiom, "siu an te mi," raising the tray to eyebrow level, symbolizing mutual respect in marriage. If you can't even confess your love, how can you talk about being in love? Maybe your crush doesn't like you, but if you never speak up, you'll miss your chance. Story 9. Forgiveness. Giving others a way out is also giving yourself an exit. One night at a small fast food restaurant, there were only 3 customers, an old man, a young man, and me. The restaurant was dim because of the lack of patrons. I sat alone by the window, eating. The young man sat near the door, next to the old man. I noticed the young man often glanced at the old man's phone. I was right. When the old man turned to light a cigarette, the young man snatched the phone and put it in his coat pocket, then headed for the door. The old man noticed the missing phone, looked around calmly, and then approached the young man. I worried for the old man. How could he confront someone younger and stronger? But to my surprise, he said gently, "Son, please wait." The young man asked nervously, "What is it?" The old man replied, "Yesterday was my 70th birthday. My daughter gave me that phone. I don't really like it, but it's her gift. I must have accidentally dropped it. My eyes and back aren't what they used to be. Can you help me find it?" The young man relaxed and wiped sweat from his forehead. He said, "Don't worry, I'll help you find it." He bent down and pretended to look, then handed the phone back. "Is this yours?" he asked. The old man held his hand and said gratefully, "Thank you. You're so kind. You can go now." The young man trembled, turned his face away, and quickly left. I was stunned. Afterward, I asked the old man, "Sir, you knew your phone was stolen. Why didn't you call the police?" His answer stayed with me for a long time. If I called the police, I would have lost something more valuable than the phone: forgiveness. Story 10. Be kind to the end. My parents made a living running a small general store. My dad divided the store into 2 rooms, one for selling goods, and another with a bed for resting and cooking during lunchtime. My parents' work was quite stable, with most regular customers being neighbors from nearby. During my 7th grade summer vacation, I often helped my dad at the store. He suggested I handle the money to improve my math skills and grades. I was still young, preferring to run around, but I had to sit still, playing on my phone while acting as a mannequin for the shop. One day, I woke up early, finished my chores at home, and biked to the store at 8 a.m. I cheerfully walked in, only to see an old woman in tattered clothes, carrying a small bag of rice, receiving 10,000 VND from my dad, and slowly walking out. "Dad, I came early today," I said proudly. "Well, too early, the sun hasn't even set yet." He glanced at me and sat down. "Oh, Dad, why did she buy so little rice?" I wondered. "That old woman, she has no money, she only bought 3 taels of rice," Dad said thoughtfully. 3 taels of rice? 1 kilogram is 15,000 VND. 3 taels of rice is 4,500 VND. I muttered, calculating, then stared and shouted, "Dad, didn't you give her the wrong change? She bought 3 taels of rice, and you gave her 10,000 VND back. So how much did she give you?" "She gave me 5,000 VND, Dad said." "Oh, Dad." I was stunned. A student like me, who always got average grades in math, was confused. "Dad, you can count that on your fingers. You gave her the wrong change. She bought 3 taels of rice for 5,000 VND, but you gave her 10,000 VND back. Dad, are you sick?" Dad waved his hand. "She's an old neighbor from this street. She's a widow, alone, now old with no children, living on a small allowance and by collecting trash. For over 10 years, she's been very supportive of our business. No matter what she buys, she always comes to our shop. But for the past 2 years, she seems to have lost her memory. Sometimes she's confused and doesn't remember things clearly. I think since she's like that, we have to help her. So for the past 2 years, she buys 3 taels of rice from our shop for 5,000 VND, and I give her 10,000 VND back. Otherwise, with that small allowance, how could she buy rice, vegetables, and daily necessities? How would she live, my child?" I quietly listened and looked up at my 50-year-old father's face. I suddenly realized that the Almighty Father in my mind was also getting old. The next morning, as I reached out to turn off my alarm clock, intending to sleep a little longer, I heard Dad getting up, so I also jumped up. We, father and son, ate the noodles Mom cooked, then rode our bikes to the store. Not long after opening, the old woman arrived again. Her hands trembling, she pulled out 5,000 VND from her pocket, a smile on her lips, and handed the wrinkled money to my dad, shopkeeper, 3 taels of rice. "Yes, ma'am." Story 11, Not understanding each other, not loving each other. Lao Tzu said, "He who knows others is wise." Being able to understand others' difficulties and offering timely help is true wisdom. The easiest mistake people make in relationships is loving others in their own familiar way. We assume that everything we do is for the good of others, but they are not moved, sometimes even feeling disgusted. The root of this problem is not understanding each other, not a lack of love. There is a parable about a fishing couple who lived together their entire lives in harmony. They never once showed anger or argued. The wife was extremely kind and resourceful. Every day, she would choose the best fish, remove the head and tail, carefully fillet the best part of the fish, and cook it for her husband with all her love. One day, she would bake the fish fragrant, the next, she would steam it with ginger, subtly scented. She would place the fish on a plate for her husband to eat, while she herself simply ate the leftover head and tail. As long as she was full, that was enough. Decades passed. One evening, in the twilight, the old man sighed deeply and said to his wife, "My whole life, I've never asked you for anything. If I don't say it now, I might never have the chance again. When will you make me a fish head? My whole life, what I've loved most to eat is fish head." The wife immediately burst into tears upon hearing this. She said, "From when I was a child until now, I always thought the body of the fish was the best part. Because I loved you, I always gave you the fish body, while I only dared to eat the fish head." The biggest misunderstanding in the world is not a lack of love, but loving others in your own way. The most lacking thing in this world, more luxurious than love, is understanding. But on our long journey of life, how many people do we truly meet who understand us? Even if we do, how many truly want to understand us? If a kindred spirit is found, even just one person is more than enough. True understanding is not about dating, missing each other, and certainly not about forcing each other, but rather it's natural. This understanding has nothing to do with romance, nothing to do with fame or fortune, and even nothing to do with sunny or rainy days. Because of understanding, one chooses the way you can best receive love. Because of understanding, one can deal with people in the wisest way, protecting the one they love in the most suitable way. Story 12. If you don't want to keep your own secrets, you should respect others' secrets. In life, if we don't want to keep our own secrets, we should also respect the secrets of others. Some people, when being entertained by others, often easily blurt out all the secrets they know. Respecting others' secrets. Some people, when being entertained by others, often easily blurt out all the secrets they know. And some people, with unstable temperaments, when treated warmly by others, cannot keep any secrets to themselves, wanting to say everything. Especially after a full meal and drinks, people often blurt out, "We are friends, we've known each other for many years." Today, there's no need to hide anything, I'll tell you everything, but you absolutely must not tell anyone else. The proverb says, once a secret is spoken, after it passes through the door, the whole world will surely know. Therefore, once a secret is revealed, it will spread incredibly powerfully, and the consequences are unpredictable. A person who cannot keep secrets like that will only disappoint those who trust them even more. Therefore, regarding others' secrets, we must certainly know how to keep our mouths shut. There was a person who went for a job interview at an enterprise. Many people also applied. After the oral interview, there was a written test. The questions were not difficult for him, but there was one final question that made him hesitate greatly. The question was, write down the secrets of your previous company, as many as possible. He looked around and saw that others were all writing furiously. He thought for a while, then took his test paper to the examiner and said, "I'm sorry, I cannot answer this question. Even if it was my previous company, I still have an obligation to keep its secrets." After saying that, he left the examination room. The next day, he received a job offer letter from the enterprise. The letter stated, "We are satisfied with your professional ethics. A person who knows how to keep others' secrets is exactly the person we need." It can be seen that knowing how to respect others will ultimately earn others' respect. Regardless of the circumstances, if you can keep others' secrets, you will certainly be valued by others and trusted. On the other hand, there are some things that are not secrets but are private matters between two people. These should still be kept confidential. Story 13, Always Hungry, Always Foolish. Once upon a time, in a certain forest, there lived two people. One was named Hungry, and the other was named Perfect. Hungry was always very hungry. Perfect, on the other hand, pursued perfection in everything he did. Early in the morning, Hungry felt very hungry, so he grabbed his stone axe and went hunting. Perfect saw Hungry like this and thought Hungry was too foolish. He said, "You want to hunt, but where? If the prey is in the east, and you go west, wouldn't that be a waste of effort? And if the prey is in the south, and you go north, wouldn't that also be a waste of effort? Wouldn't you come back empty-handed?" To have a perfect hunt, Perfect spent the entire day planning in detail. Indeed, Hungry wasted the entire day and only found some random fruits, not enough to eat. So the next day, Hungry continued to carry his axe and hunt to fill his stomach. Perfect, however, continued to sit there planning. A few days passed, and Hungry fortunately caught a large prey and finally had a hearty and satisfying meal. Hungry even intended to bring some back to share with Perfect, but when he returned home, he found that Perfect had died of starvation. Even at the moment of death, Perfect's plan was not yet finished. In fact, Perfect didn't know that in this world, there is no such thing as a perfect plan, there is only perfect action. George said, "Always hungry, always foolish." When young people meet someone they like, they will use every method to express it, wanting to confess immediately. If it doesn't work out, at most they'll get a slap. But if by chance it succeeds, the psychological hunger will naturally be temporarily resolved. And the hunger and foolishness in one's career will push people into a state of action. If a person's inner self lacks this irrational ability, they will fall into the trap of determinism, like Perfect. Before determining the prey's location, he refused to act, while the prey is a living entity, and it is always in motion, already elsewhere. Ultimately, determinism makes you live your whole life in what is called never accomplishing anything. Only the philosophy of hunger pushes you, creating opportunities for you to get what you want. Therefore, we must know that masters are all people who possess a hungry mindset, while for ordinary people, most of their inner desires are quickly extinguished. Story 14, A Professor's Pursuit of Perfection in Marriage. There was a university professor named Michael Ticker. When he was young, he got married hastily, missing out on a potentially better match. Because of this, he painstakingly researched and calculated the probability of meeting the perfect woman for him. His research showed that the probability of someone meeting their perfect love is 37%. Assuming the number of women he met each year was constant, if he started making a choice at 58 years old, then before or after 26.1 years old, the probability of meeting his perfect partner would be lower than 37%. Michael was compelled to propose to the girl he liked most among those he met on the day he turned 26.1 years old, as the probability of her being his perfect half was the highest. After calculating the result, Michael went into cold mode. Before he turned 26.1, no matter how good a girl he met, he wouldn't be moved. So he waited and waited. Finally, the day he turned 26. One arrived. He immediately rushed out of his house. Time was short. He had to propose to that girl today. If he missed this time, it would be difficult for him to meet his perfect half later. Finally, amidst the bustling crowd, Michael met the girl he admired. Michael quickly ran to her and said, "Will you marry me?" The girl stared at Michael in shock and then screamed, "Help me. There's a pervert here." No way, Michael was equally stunned. His calculations were absolutely correct. The problem was that others didn't follow his calculations. On the day he turned 26.1, he met the girl he admired, and she was indeed the perfect wife with the highest probability for him. However, he himself might not necessarily be her perfect husband. Even if it were true, no one would agree to marry someone they just met like that. Story 15. There is a kind of wisdom called self-reflection. Life needs to look forward because the future brings hope. However, living in this world also requires knowing how to look back at oneself, because only by looking back can one see the broad path ahead. Only when we have the courage to look back at the past can we embrace a beautiful future. Su Shi once wrote 2 lines of poetry in his work, Huan Shi Sha, Shan Xia Lan Na Don Tam Ki, who says human life cannot be young again. The flowing water in front of the gate still flows west. People often remind each other, in life, always look forward. Everything will get better. However, constantly looking forward cannot completely resolve the current negative state. Life needs to look forward because the future brings hope. However, living in this world also requires knowing how to look back at oneself, because only by looking back can one see the broad path ahead. Look back so as not to forget why you started. In the TV drama Fu Tram, Bai Baihe played Xiao Li, a sales executive at a foreign company. Not long after joining the company, she received a large order from a state-owned enterprise undergoing corporate restructuring. Because she had extensive connections with key members of the company, she was drawn into the struggle of senior management. One day, marketing director Steve called Xiao Li to his office and tried every way to manipulate her, hoping she would send a report letter to the U.S. headquarters under her personal name. The report would insinuate that sales general manager Frank's success was due to transactions based on her beauty and charm. In reality, Steve didn't need to use emotion to control her or logic to entice her. During their conversation, Xiao Li soon realized that she was merely a pawn played by the company's senior management. Steve's lobbying was actually just to confirm her current situation. If she didn't write the report letter, her future situation would become even more difficult. At this point, Xiao Li recalled her initial wish when she transitioned from a management job to sales. She hoped that through her own efforts, she could bring happiness and joy to others. If she now agreed to the act of falsely accusing her superiors, it would be a violation of her initial aspiration. Therefore, she resolutely refused Steve's request. The Tao Te Ching says, all things return to their root. No matter how fast people live in this world, only by not forgetting their origin can they find their way back home. People in life will encounter all kinds of temptations. Some walk halfway and take a detour, while others even ignore all warnings and go the wrong way. On the path of life, everyone wants to realize their dreams and aspirations, but they cannot forget their initial aspiration just because they have walked for too long. Therefore, when you feel confused, do not hesitate to stop for a moment, look back at your initial aspiration, so that you do not go astray, deviate, or waste time. Turn around and look back to steady yourself. The Chinese film Yin Sheng, Doctor, makes us pay attention to actress Yuan Quan. It must be said that in today's showbiz, very few actors are willing to live fully for their roles. At 22, Yuan Quan won the Golden Rooster Award for Best Supporting Actress for her debut film, Spring Rhapsody. Subsequently, she participated in Blue Love and Beautiful Legs, both of which gained recognition, and her career gradually advanced. At that time, she could have taken on roles in major films and become a first-tier star, but she chose to stop and withdraw from the television stage. She returned to the lesser-known theater stage to steady herself. Many people called Yuan Quan foolish, but she said, "I act not for how much money I earn, but simply because I love acting and the feeling of concentration." From then on, she began to join theater clubs to study scripts. It was during this period that her acting skills made a qualitative leap. In the play, Gen E, with her excellent performance, she won the Plum Blossom Award, the most prestigious national theater award. At 30, she became a member of the Chinese Drama Research Institute's Hall of Fame. Currently, Yuan Quan is 44 years old, and she still hasn't abandoned her initial aspiration for theater. Kazuo Inamori said, "Only when you learn to steady yourself can you live the way you want. In this world, nothing can be achieved overnight. No one can transform in an instant. Nothing in the world can be done in a flash. When you find that your abilities are not enough to help you achieve your goals, you should steady yourself to accumulate more strength. Only when your talent matches your ambition can you sail with the wind and overcome waves. Turn around and look back to recognize yourself." The TV presenter Bai Yensong once said, "If you let a dog appear on television, it will become a famous dog. But you must know that without the television stage, the dog will soon return to dust." This saying is crude but not without reason. If a person cannot recognize their own position and overestimate themselves, they will not go far or fly high. Zheng Banqiao, a famous writer of the Qing dynasty, once had such an experience. One year, he went to Yunfeng Mountain in Laizhou, Shandong Province, to see the stele of Zheng Wengong. Because it was getting dark, he asked to stay at the home of an old scholar in the mountains. In the old man's house, there was a large square table, like a large, exquisite stone inkstone. Zheng Banqiao praised it endlessly. Seeing this, the old man invited Zheng Banqiao to write a souvenir on the table that looked like a large, exquisite stone inkstone. Zheng Banqiao praised it endlessly. The old man saw this and invited Zheng Banqiao to write a souvenir on the inkstones. Story 16, a heartbreaking story about human life. Every morning, I saw this boy holding a can in front of the eatery. I watched him and saw that as soon as a customer asked for the bill, the boy would run in and look at the bowls. If there was leftover food, he would quickly pour it into his can and then run back outside to wait. When the can was almost full, the boy would disappear. My friend who sat with me never paid attention to the boy because every morning I only had enough money for a cup of coffee. This went on for over a year before I finally got to know the boy and a little about his family's circumstances. His name was Tuan. I deliberately made his acquaintance one rainy day when he stood sheltering inside the eatery. He kept moving deeper into the eatery as the rain grew heavier, until he was only about half a meter from me. I reached out, pulled him to a table, and asked if he liked coffee. Tuan shook his head vigorously and said no. I asked him what he did, why he came here every day, and who he lived with. The boy seemed to guess that I was just a coffee addict who stayed there all day, so he quickly replied, "I live with my mom and dad. My dad works far away, and my mom helps out at the market." I asked further, "Do you go to school?" Tuan said, "I don't go to school. I stay home and help my mom raise pigs." That explained Tuan's daily presence at this eatery. Hearing the boy, I asked the owner to help Tuan get leftover rice and food. From then on, Tuan no longer stood furtively outside the shop. And thanks to his gentle and honest nature, the owner let Tuan help clean tables in exchange for leftover food to take home, and also fed Tuan for his work. From then on, Tuan and I became closer and very good friends. One time, Tuan asked me, "What do you do, sir?" I simply replied, "I'm keeping quiet." Indeed, The slow days passed. Fortunately, my wife and I reconnected. So, our meals no longer consisted of root vegetables mixed with rice, but I still habitually went for coffee at the shop near home every morning. I don't know if the owner cast a spell on me, but I was addicted and never missed a day. One day, I suggested going to Tuan's house to see it, because Tuan said it wasn't far. Seeing his hesitation and fear, I immediately knew Tuan was hiding something. Feeling very sorry for Tuan, I slipped him some money. A few days later, I quietly followed Tuan when he brought rice and leftover food home at noon. When I saw Tuan slip into a tiny hut, I was truly surprised. Standing under a kapok tree not far from his house, I thought to myself, such a tiny house for a family of 3, where would they raise pigs? While I was standing there thinking, Tuan came out with his can and pot to collect the evening food. After Tuan left, I approached. Only then did I see clearly that it wasn't a house at all. It was a hollow covered with all sorts of scrap materials. You had to crouch low to get inside. I heard footsteps stop. A woman's voice asked, "Who's there?" I replied that I was looking for Tuan. Then a man's voice said that Tuan had just left, and asked who I was, inviting me in. As I bent down and crawled inside, I was truly astonished by what I saw before my eyes. The haggard man had lost both his legs, looked about my age, but seemed weak, worn, and extremely miserable. A sick woman, with a pale face, both were eating the food Tuan had just brought. Both startled, moved, and saddened, tears welled up in my eyes despite my efforts to hold them back. From then on, I understood the disabled soldier, exhausted and worn out, living with his devoted wife who had cared for him for years, now suffering from a severe malignant disease. It was truly heartbreaking. I emptied my pockets and gave them all the money, then excused myself. Back home, I was still haunted by the tragic situation of the boy's family, skipping meals for an entire day. The next morning, when I went for coffee, Tuan saw me and looked furtive, not daring to meet my gaze, because he knew I had been to his house yesterday. Tuan seemed scared of me, but I truly felt both pity and great admiration for him. I called Tuan over and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" Poor Tuan lowered his head in silence, adding to my sorrow. A customer called for the bill. As if given a chance to avoid me, Tuan ran off to clear the table and continued collecting food. No wonder Tuan later started sorting the leftover food very carefully. What a pity for the boy's situation, so young yet struggling to support his parents to the best of his limited ability. His father was an old disabled soldier from before 1975, with both legs amputated. His mother suffered from severe liver disease, her legs swollen, making it very difficult for her to walk, and her skin was yellow. Tuan was the main breadwinner in the family. He was very filial. From then on, I often gave him money to buy bread, rice, and food to support his parents. My wife completed the procedures to sponsor me to Australia. On the day I left, I was heartbroken to leave behind 2 sorrows, leaving my mother and sister in our hometown, and no longer having the opportunity to help Tuan. Settling in Australia, I lived in Victoria. The first few years were extremely hard for me as I struggled with life in a foreign land, and everything felt strange and unfamiliar to me. From the language to the weather, I faced many difficulties. Occasionally, I sent money home to support my mother and sister, not forgetting to ask my sister to send a little to Tuan, as a small token of affection from afar. A few years later, I returned to visit my family and stopped by to look for Tuan, but he was no longer collecting food from that eatery. I then explained Tuan's situation to the owner. The owner's eyes turned red, and she reproached me for not telling her earlier so she could find a way to help Tuan's family. I only excused myself by saying that the boy wanted to keep it a secret from everyone. I quickly visited his house and learned that Tuan's mother had passed away from liver cancer. Only Tuan's father, with no legs, remained, lying in a corner, looking utterly pitiful. Upon asking, I learned that Tuan had found a job as a bricklayer's assistant to earn money to support his father. On Sunday, I went to find Tuan. It had only been a few years, but Tuan had grown tall and become a very handsome young man, his skin dark from working under the sun to earn money. I took Tuan back to the old coffee shop. Tuan seemed a little hesitant. I reassured him that the owner was very kind, she just didn't know Tuan's family situation. At the eatery, the owner earnestly pleaded with Tuan to come work for her. Cleaning and serving food to customers would be easier than being a bricklayer's assistant, and she would pay him the same salary as he was earning as an assistant. In the evening, the leftover food from sales, she would let him take home to use so he wouldn't have to buy or go to the market. For the first time, I saw Tuan cry. The owner also cried, making me get up and leave to avoid shedding tears because I couldn't bear it. Tuan, crying, said, "Why is everyone so kind to my family? But I'm currently working as a bricklayer's assistant for Annam. He's also very kind and has helped my family a lot. Every morning he buys a sticky rice packet or bread for my dad before we go to work. I'm also very grateful to him, so I can't quit. I'm sorry." The owner wiped away her tears and said, "Whenever you need me, don't hesitate to let me know." In this life, there are still tragic circumstances that few people know about, and there are also deserving children like Tuan. On the day I returned to Australia, I gave Tuan and his father 2 million VND. Seeing Tuan and his father so happy, I felt happy too. Not knowing how else to help Tuan's family, I took pictures of Tuan's father and photocopied his papers, bringing them back to Australia and sending them to the Forgotten Disabled Veterans Aid Association headquartered in Sydney. A few months later, I received a letter from Tuan's father, expressing his immense joy at receiving help and money from the Australian Association. He said that for all those years, it was the first time he had felt happiness, knowing that someone still remembered his life as a disabled soldier. I don't know how happy he was, but I myself was extremely happy to have done something that brought joy to those impoverished disabled veterans living in our homeland. Story 17. To succeed, you must know how to close the door behind you. Everyone is merely a passerby in the universe. Don't dwell on the past, because the past will eventually pass. Don't be obsessed with old relationships, because some are just passers-by. Don't just run in the present, because the future will eventually come. When you need to turn over a new leaf, turn it. When you need to let go, let go. Life is actually a one-way journey. Many times, we cannot let go of our inner obsessions. We cling to people and events from the past, worry about the present and future, feel regret for countless things, and forget to enjoy the present. I really like the phrase, "Be a little gentle with yourself." You are also just a child in the universe, no different from plants and stars. I once heard this story and was very inspired. Former British Prime Minister, Sir George, had a habit of closing doors after entering or leaving a room. One day, George was strolling with a friend on campus. Every time he passed through a gate, he reached out and closed it. His friend asked in surprise, "Do you really have to close the gate?" "Of course, I have to," he smiled. "My whole life, I've always closed the door behind me. You must know that this is something that must be done. When you close the door, you leave everything that has passed behind, no matter if it's a great achievement or a regret. Indeed, if you want to be a happy and successful person, it's very important to remember to close the door behind you. Don't dwell on the past, always look forward. Whatever happened in the past, it's the past. You must erase the past and start anew. What has passed will not be looked back upon. When facing anything, you should treat your heart like a mirror. When things come, they arrive. When they go, they leave. An old blacksmith lived a simple life, surrounded by a bamboo fence, with a transistor radio in his hand and a beautiful purple vase beside him. One day, an antique dealer passed by the blacksmith's shop and saw the vase. He immediately recognized it as a valuable piece by a famous master. So he negotiated with the blacksmith and bought it for nearly 400 million VND. The old blacksmith was initially very surprised, then refused, saying the vase was left by his grandfather. After the dealer left, the old blacksmith couldn't eat or sleep. He stared at the vase, never dreaming it was an antique. He was also always worried about whether the vase might be lost. The next day, the antique dealer came again, and this time brought double the money. People from the streets and alleys, hearing the news, flocked to the blacksmith's house, wanting to see how precious the vase was. Who would have thought that because there were too many people, a child accidentally broke the teapot? This was a valuable item. However, the old man was not angry inside, saying, "Forget it, I haven't felt comfortable since the day I discovered this vase was valuable. Now it's better, and I'm comfortable again." True happiness never depends on how much you own, but on how little you care about. If a person is too attached to external things, they will surely be burdened by them. Let go of gains and losses, and you are a free person. The past does not deceive. Shakespeare said, "The past is prologue." Everything in the past, whether glory or failure, is the past. People must move forward. There's a story like this. A young man felt life was very heavy, often feeling anxious and depressed about small things. He sought out a wise man for liberation, and after listening to his troubles, the wise man took him to a desert. In the desert, there were many beautiful stones. The wise man gave him a basket and asked him to pick the stones he liked and put them in the basket while walking. The young man picked many beautiful stones along the way, making the burden on his shoulders heavier and heavier. Finally, he was exhausted. In fact, the oasis was not far away, but he no longer had the strength to go any further. In reality, everyone's life is like this basket. At first, everyone's basket is the same. The further you go, each time you pick something up and put it in, you will become more and more tired. Wise people know how to clean their baskets on their shoulders in time, and they will become more comfortable by erasing unimportant memories and those unpleasant social interactions. When everything is going well, be clear-headed. You can guard against arrogance and impatience, constantly overcome yourself, and have the courage to break the status quo. Facing adversity, only by overcoming oneself can one gain the courage to move forward, turn failure into experience, and rise from the depths. What kind of mindset will promote corresponding choices, and what kind of choices will bring what kind of results? Facing this ever-changing world, don't focus on the past. Let go of the burden and lightly step into the battle. Consider every success as a new starting point, new hope, and new challenge, and new successes will beckon you not far away. Learn to look forward and start a new chapter. Sighing over a past life will only bring you darkness. Moving forward towards future goals, life will give you light. Learning to look forward will lead to a new life, new expectations, and new love. Don't turn back easily, don't be blindly obsessed, and remember to close the door behind you. When you close the door, you leave the past behind, and you can start anew. Look forward, don't look back. As long as you bravely face it and look up, you will see that the clouds are just a brief rainy season. If you need to turn it over, turn it over. If you need to put it down, put it down. Story 18, Everyone wipes their own tears. No one can cry for you. Life is indeed not easy, full of bitterness, hardship, joy, sorrow, and separation. We still have to live on and live well. Why do we always have to please others? It's better to live happily for ourselves. Turn a hard life into poetry. Turn a heartless world into deep affection. That's true strength. Different ways of living, different results. If your life revolves around money, you will live very miserably. If your life revolves around love, you will live very painfully. If your life revolves around climbing high, you will live very troubled. If your life revolves around tolerance, you will live very happily. If your life revolves around contentment, you will live very joyfully. If your life revolves around gratitude, you will live very benevolently. When you have to lie in a hospital bed, you will no longer be afraid of anything. At that time, everyone will be afraid of you. Friends are afraid you'll borrow money. Parents are afraid you won't recover. Your partner is afraid you'll exhaust them. Your boss is afraid you can't return to work and quickly looks for a replacement. Doctors are afraid you don't have enough money for hospital fees and often check your remaining balance to stop medication. By then, temper and arrogance will have disappeared. Therefore, you must take good care of yourself. Everything else is not yours, only your body is yours. The most important thing is health. Learn to take care of yourself, cherish yourself. When you're tired, someone will say, if you're tired, don't work anymore, but if you don't work and don't have money, will anyone give you some? When you're sick, someone will say, take your medicine, but will anyone actually buy you medicine? When you say your phone is broken, many people will say, if it's broken, get a new one, but will anyone actually buy you a new phone? Try hard. If you don't try, no one can give you the life you want. There are things that, once you think about them clearly, you'll understand. In this world, you are you. You hurt, only you hurt. You're tired, only you're tired. Someone sympathizes with you, but what can they do? In the end, cleaning up the mess still depends on yourself. Therefore, remember, there are people you can hope for, but you must not rely on them. Always encourage yourself, try hard, be strong. When it rains, the road is wet and slippery, pick yourself up, crawl back up. Everyone walks their own path in life, only you know if you're tired or not. Everyone wipes their own tears, no one can cry for you. Don't cling to old affairs and not move forward. Don't rely on those who have helped you. When someone neglects you, don't be sad. Everyone has their own life. No one can always be by your side. Those who want to leave cannot be held back. Those who are old and asleep cannot be woken up no matter how much you call. Everyone strives to have a perfect life, but there is nothing absolutely perfect in this world. The sun reaches its zenith and immediately sets in the west, the full moon immediately wanes. Therefore, imperfections are eternal, not being perfect is called life. In fact, the most beautiful state is when the flowers are not yet fully bloomed, and the moon is not yet full. Knowing how to bow your head means you'll never bump your head. Knowing how to yield means you'll never retreat. Those who seek their own flaws will find satisfaction. Those who cherish blessings will find happiness. How many people are wasting their own lives? In this life, many people are waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for the future. Waiting for next time. Waiting until conditions are right. Waiting for a good opportunity. Waiting until they have money. But later, they wait and wait, until fate runs out, until there's no connection, until youth is gone. They wait until the end, until they no longer have health, no longer have opportunities, no longer have any choices. They wait until regret, until despair, until belated remorse. Especially parents. Parents feel at ease when their children learn to walk. Parents feel at ease when their children go to school. Parents feel at ease when their children get into college. Parents feel at ease when their children find stable jobs. Parents feel at ease when their children find a partner. Parents feel at ease when their children get married. Parents feel at ease when their children have children. Parents feel at ease when their grandchildren learn to walk. Parents feel at ease when their grandchildren go to school. Parents feel at ease when their grandchildren go to college. It's just a pity that, in the end, parents never truly enjoyed a single full day of leisure. In this life, every second is passing. Time waits for no one. How long will you keep waiting? Until there's no opportunity left, then you turn back, regretting what has happened in your life. Dear friends, we often think that waiting a little bit is no big deal. In fact, a second, 2 seconds, then when accumulated, we have waited for countless years, wasted countless hours of human life. But there are things in life that cannot wait. Joy cannot wait, because when that moment passes, it will never return. Health cannot wait, because when health is gone, there is nothing left in life. Education cannot wait, because when the saplings rot, it will be very difficult for them to develop normally when they grow up. Filial piety cannot wait, because when parents pass away, there will be no more opportunities to show filial piety. Friendship cannot wait, because when friendship becomes dull, it is impossible to mend it. Youth cannot wait, because when time has passed, no amount of money can buy back youth. Life is fleeting, don't leave any regrets. Seizing time and making the most of your efforts is the most important thing. Cherish destiny, cherish every opportunity, every moment of life. Cherishing time is also cherishing our own lives. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our video. Wishing you a pleasant evening and sweet dreams. And now, goodbye and see you again in our next videos.